Welcome. I'm Howard Nema. Once again, here is G.Edward Griffin.
The Secretary of Defense, pretty important position if you're going to build a new world order and use coercion if necessary. Include James Forrestal, George Marshall, Charles Wilson, Neil McElroy, Robert McNamara, Melvin Laird, Elliot Richardson, James Schlesinger, Harold Brown, Caspar Weinberger, Frank Carlucci, Richard Cheney, Les Aspin, William Perry, William Cohen, and Donald Rumsfeld. CIA directors: Walter Smith, William Colby, Richard Helms, Alan Dulles, John McCone, James Schlesinger, George Bush Sr., Stansfield Turner, William Casey, William Webster, Robert Gates, James Woolsey, John Deutsch, William Studeman, George Tenet, Porter Goss, and Michael Hayden. Now, some better known corporations with CFR members at the board or chief executive levels, which means they exert dominance and, for all practical purposes, control over the policies of these large corporations. Now, this is a long list, and I'm not going to read to you any more than just the tip of the iceberg. But they include Atlantic Richfield Oil Company, AT&T, Avon Products, Bechtel Construction Group, Boeing Company, Bristol-Myers Squibb, Chevron, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi-Cola, Consolidated Edison of New York, Exxon, Dow Chemical, DuPont Chemical, Eastman Kodak, Enron, Estee Lauder, Ford Motor, General Electric, General Foods, Hewlett-Packard, Hughes Aircraft, IBM, International Paper, Johnson & Johnson, Levi Strauss & Company, Lockheed Aerospace, Lucent Technologies, Mobil Oil, Monsanto, Northrop, Pacific Gas and Electric, Phillips Petroleum, Procter & Gamble, Quaker Oats, SBC Yahoo, Shell Oil, SmithKline Beecham Pharmaceuticals, Sprint Corporation, Texaco, Santa Fe Southern Pacific Railroad, Teledyne, TRW, Southern California Edison, Unical, United Technologies, Verizon Communications, Warner Lambert, Weyerhaeuser, and Xerox, to name just a few. Now, in the media, pretty important place to be if you want to control public opinion, we find CFR members in management and operational positions at the following media corporations: the Army Times, Associated Press, Association of American Publishers, Barron's, Boston Globe, Business Week, Christian Science Monitor, Dallas Morning News, Detroit Free Press, Detroit News, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Los Angeles Times, New York Post, San Diego Union Tribune, Times Mirror, Random House, W.W. Norton and Company, Warner Books, American Spectator, Atlantic, Harper's, Farm Journal, Financial World, Insight, Washington Times, Medical Tribune, National Geographic, National Review, New Republic, New Yorker, Newsday, Newsmax, Newsweek, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Reader's Digest, Rolling Stone, Scientific American, Time Warner, Time, U.S. News and World Report, Washington Post, ABC, CBS, CNN, NBC, PBS, RCA, and the Walt Disney Company. Did we leave anybody out? I don't think so. Not on the list yet. Could be, though. I just didn't locate it.
American Free Press?
Pardon?
American Free Press?
I'm going to check into those guys. All right, the media personalities, the talking heads. Not so important, but still important. David Brinkley, Tom Brokaw, William Buckley, Peter Jennings, Bill Moyers, Dan Rather, Diane Sawyer, Barbara Walters, Katie Couric, and Andrea Mitchell, wife of Alan Greenspan. And by the way, Greenspan, in case you were wondering, former chairman of the Federal Reserve System, is a member of the CFR. Labor unions, with CFR members in key positions at the top, include AFL-CIO, United Steelworkers of America, United Auto Workers, American Federation of Teachers, Bricklayers and Allied Craft, Communications Workers of America, Union of Needle Trades, and Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers. In the tax-exempt foundations and the think tanks, which often create policies which the government then implement, the number of CFR members in controlling positions is 443. As of my last count. Could be more, could be less today, but it's in that range. Some of the better known names are the Sloan and Kettering Foundations, the Aspen Institute, the Atlantic Council, Bilderberg Group, Brookings Institute, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, the Carnegie Foundation, Ford Foundation, Guggenheim Foundation, Hudson Institute, John and Catherine MacArthur Foundation, Mellon Foundation, Rand Corporation, Rhodes Scholarship Selection Commission, Rockefeller Foundation and Rockefeller Brothers Fund, Trilateral Commission, and the UN Association. By the way, if you've ever wondered where all of these radical groups get their money that are agitating for all kinds of disruptive things in the United States, all of the radical La Raza groups, you know, a few years ago they had the little band of radicalized American Indians messing up the Northwest. They're all funded by these organizations, tax-exempt foundations. That's where the money comes from. Now, in the universities, the number of CFR members who are or have been at the very tops as professors or presidents or department heads, board members, the total number is 563. In the financial institutions such as banks, the Federal Reserve, the stock exchanges, the brokerage houses, the number of CFR members with controlling positions is 284. Now, as I mentioned before, the total membership of this group is approximately 4,000 people. There are a lot of organizations, a lot of church organizations in your hometown that have that many members or more. Now, wouldn't you be surprised that if you were to discover that if the members of just that one local church dominated American politics and corporate structures and communications and universities, that they were controlling the United States, just that one little group? Wouldn't you be amazed? Wouldn't you wonder what was going on? Wouldn't you start asking some questions? It would be pretty hard, however, for you to get answers to those questions if it turned out that the media and the channels through which those questions would be asked and answered were controlled by members of that same church. And that's essentially the kind of a situation that we have facing America today. Note that this group, this Council on Foreign Relations, is not the inner core of a secret society. It's that third ring, or it's 2 rings out from the center at least. What does that mean? It means a lot of those people don't have the slightest clue as to who is directing them or why. And don't forget that the ring beyond that is much bigger. That ring is called the Republican Democrat Party. That's the next ring out. And there are rings beyond that. None of those people know that they're being directed from the inside, you see. So these people are unaware, most of them, some of them know, but most of them are totally unaware of the control or the purpose of the CFR. I think most of them are opportunists who look at the CFR as more or less a high-powered employment agency. If you are invited to become a member and you get on their membership list, you don't have to worry about a good job ever again. Because every time these people are looking for a reliable, trustworthy person with the right mental outlook, and they're looking for someone to hire, they look on that membership list and they know that that's a safe list. And so they're always being offered jobs. And people know that, even though they may not know why. So a lot of them are just opportunists. And you see, you don't get on that list just because you're a good guy or because you're a smart guy. You've been very carefully analyzed, and you have to be invited by certain people, and you have been analyzed to show that you have this goal in your mind of internationalism, collectivism, and the New World Order. If you don't express a sympathy with that goal, you will never be invited to join the CFR. And even if you do have that goal, you may not be invited, because now they want to look at you and see how potentially powerful you can be, how smart you are, what are your connections, what are you doing in life, and possibly they even look to see how ruthless you are. I don't know. But anyway, I want to emphasize that just because people are in the Council on Foreign Relations does not mean that they're part of the inner core of the secret society. Now, there are 3 things we must understand about this group. One is they are not partisan. This is perhaps the most important thing for us to know today, is that this is not an issue of Republicans versus Democrats. You find about an equal number of Republicans and Democrats on this membership list. To these people, political partisanship is a joke. They have much bigger fish to fry. They use partisan politics as a gimmick to manipulate the thinking and the loyalties and the activities of the common man. None of these people are Democrats or Republicans with the capital letters in front of them, only as a matter of convenience. That's the first thing to know. The second thing to know is that they are elitists. They intend to rule the world. For the world's own good, of course, you understand. But they really believe that their vision of the New World Order, based on the model of collectivism, is the highest morality, and they intend to use any method whatsoever to bring that about. They consider that they are at war to bring that about. And people like you and me are the enemy in that war. We must be defeated. We must be annihilated. To them, they adopt the morality of war. What is the morality of war? In wartime, there is only one immoral act, and that is to lose. And that's their mentality. You keep that in mind when you're dealing with these people. They would be totally ruthless. And if it's necessary to put innocent people in prison, so be it. If it's necessary to engineer an event that would cause the loss of thousands of American lives, so be it. Because they are at war, and they do not intend to lose. The third thing to know is that the method by which they intend to rule is called democracy. We're back to that word now, democracy. The problem arises, how does a ruling elite control the masses in an age where people have been conditioned to think that they should determine their own political destiny? And what we've been taught, like in that classroom, we'll vote on everything. And our vote will make it correct. And as long as we're given the vote, everything is fine. We've been taught that. So how does the ruling elite deal with that mass psychology where everybody thinks that they should have a right to vote on their leaders and on the issues and so forth? And the answer is quite simple. How do you keep the gum-chewing public out of the way? And that leads to the title of my presentation, which is the Quigley Formula. Quigley answers that question in his book. He says, to perpetuate the deception of democracy, to allow people to continue to think that they are participating in their own political destiny, all we have to do is to create two political parties and control them both, and let the idiots jump from one party to the next and choose one candidate and versus the other, as long as they never get out of that two-box trap that we set for them. Let them really battle each other on secondary issues, but when it comes to the final end game of building a new world order, based on the model of collectivism, all candidates in both parties must be in total agreement. That's the Quigley formula. Does it sound familiar? Did Quigley really say that? He did. Here's what he said. The national parties and their presidential candidates, with the Eastern establishment assiduously fostering the process behind the scenes, moved closer together and nearly met in the center with almost identical candidates and platforms, although the process was concealed as much as possible by the revival of obsolescent or meaningless war cries and slogans, often going back to the Civil War. The argument that the two parties should represent opposed ideals and policies, one perhaps of the right and the other of the left, is a foolish idea, acceptable only to the doctrinaire and academic thinkers. Instead, the two parties should be almost identical, so that the American people can throw the rascals out at any election without leading to any profound or extreme shifts in policy. Either party in office becomes in time corrupt, tired, unenterprising, and vigorless. Then it should be possible to replace it every 4 years, if necessary, by the other party, which will be none of these things, but which will still pursue with new vigor approximately the same basic policies. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the Quigley formula. And if it sounds familiar, it's because we have been living under that formula since at least World War I. Just think about that. And not 1 in 1,000 people has been aware of it. Now, what are these basic policies that Quigley is talking about? It is anything that advances the New World Order based on the model of collectivism. The candidates and the parties should be fierce campaigners. They should attack each other with great vigor, but when the elections are over, they will work as a team for their common goals. All else is showmanship.